Today is Wednesday, January 14th. This is Boundless Insights, and I'm Aviva Klompas. There are moments in a country's life when leadership is measured not only by decisions, but by presence, by who shows up, who listens, and who speaks when words are hardest to find. Israel is in one of those moments. The country has been immersed in grief, trauma, anger, and uncertainty. Trust in leadership has been shaken, and unity is being profoundly tested. After years of pain and upheaval, Israelis and Jews around the world are asking what healing, leadership, and moral clarity look like now. I'm deeply honored to be joined today by Isaac Herzog, President of the State of Israel. He has had the singular responsibility of serving the country through one of the most painful chapters in its history, working tirelessly to hold a wounded society together in the aftermath of October 7th. President Herzog comes from one of Israel's founding families, the son of Israel's sixth president and the grandson of its first chief rabbi. This gives him a rare generational perspective on leadership. Before assuming the presidency, he led the Jewish Agency, serving as a bridge between Israel and Jewish communities around the world. And over the course of his career, he's held senior roles across Israel's political, social, and security institutions. In this conversation, we talk about leadership, the principles that guide him, how Israeli society is changing, and the kind of Israel he hopes will emerge in the years ahead. Let's get into it. Mr. President, welcome to Boundless Insights.
Well, it's a great honor to see you, Aviva, and thank you for inviting me.
It is, I think, the most tremendous honor of the year. We're not that far into 2026, but this is going to carry me for a while. Thank you so much.
It's mutual. Thank you.
I wonder if we could start by you sharing with us, what is it about being president that you think would surprise people to learn?
First of all, you learn the beautiful importance of 1 second or 1 minute, because every minute and every second counts. There's so much pressure and so much going on. But truly, as for the position of being president of the state of Israel, the head of state, it is first and foremost to understand that there are so many beautiful people and so many beautiful backgrounds and so many beautiful stories of human beings on this land which are untold and should be told, and that everybody should understand that he or she is equal to anybody else who they see who may be dressed otherwise or have something else on their heads or whatever, and their lifestyles and beliefs count just as yours. Of course, under the boundaries of the law.
I'm going to ask you more about the unity of Israel, but before we do that, I think one of the things that people have trouble understanding, because Israel has both a president and a prime minister, is what's the difference in these two jobs?
Right, so it's totally different from the American system. In the American system, the head of state and the executive go together. In the European system, most of the European system, what's called the continental system, it was based on the idea of a monarchy. There's a head of state or a monarch or a head of state who is a president who does not have executive powers, and he or she is above the political system. This is the Israeli model. Our first president was Dr. Chaim Weizmann, who was one of the greatest leaders of the Zionist movement, was a huge scientist and a great founding father. And it was then carved to his stature in the world, and in a dialogue between him and David Ben-Gurion. I find this model extremely important because it enables somebody to be above the political system and also somebody who can hear and listen to everybody. If you think about it, in America, the president, naturally, because it's a political position, is not accepted or kind of divisive because he has also to be a political figure. Whilst the presidency in Israel is supposed to be, and that's why I say the president's home in Israel is the home of all the people, and everybody is allowed and invited here, and I'm the president of everybody.
I think in my mind, I look to the presidency as a unifying figure, but also for moral guidance. And as much as there's supposed to be this distinction between the politics of the prime minister's role and the unity of the president's role, in recent years, we've seen that they've really come together because a lot of the questions that impact the political side actually end up on your desk. And I imagine you're not going to tell me whether or not you're going to be granting a pardon or what's going to happen with various other political issues. But there are these big questions on the table right now: accountability after October 7th, an impending election this year, debates about forgiveness and responsibility, tension over the rule of law and who participates in the army. When you step back from the specifics of those issues, what are the principles that guide you as you navigate these moments?
So I want to explain to our viewers that I don't think that there was any president with so many painful challenges as my term in office. Not that I want to brag about it, but this is the reality. I started my term with Corona and COVID, and then moved on to the major legal upheaval and the internal conflict in Israel, which spanned throughout 23. And then October 7th came, and of course, the war with its huge results, pain, agony, suffering, trauma, and of course, victory in many cases, and resilience, and courage, and bravery, and an incredible nation. And then going back to the political rift, the political divisiveness, and the issues that you mentioned. And I find my role is first and foremost to give people a certain sense of responsibility in what they say and what they do. And it's very difficult. We are a 10 million strong nation, 10 million human beings, very multicultural, very multifaceted, people very opinionated. Each group in Israeli society is sure that it is a minority, and nobody thinks that they are in any way a majority, and therefore there has to be a dialogue between the various groups. What transpires, of course, in Army unit, I just had the naval cadets here, and you see the diversity of Israel in this room, and beautiful young people, and a young generation of real heroes and lions who went to defend the state of Israel. And you say to yourself, this is what bonds them way beyond political divisiveness. But on the ongoing daily basis, we're on Twitter, we're on social networks, and a lot of this flies up in our face, and we have to show a certain sense of balance, responsibility, cool-headedness, and a moral voice. Last week, I convened an emergency meeting of the mayors and head of councils and towns in the Negev because of the tension surrounding the Bedouin community in the Negev, and the fact that we are all children of Abraham and we all have to continue living together in the Negev. Just as an example, it was the only place they agreed to convene at, and the conversation was very open, painful, and also hopeful.
I'm struck by that very, very long list of challenges that you've had to face during your presidency. And it seems to me that Israel has been through now one of the most painful periods in its history. And at the same time, I think about where we were a year ago when there were still 100 hostages being held in Gaza, before Hezbollah had been dismantled, before Iran's nuclear program had been taken down a notch. And there's still a lot of uncertainty. There's still a lot of the challenges that you've laid out. But do you feel like this particular chapter of the October 7th war is still unfolding, or have we turned the page and moved to a new phase?
It's an interim period because President Trump boldly and courageously and wisely has brought over a formula which enabled the release or the return of all our hostages except the last remaining hostage, Ran Gvili, which we hope, call, yearn, and outcry to bring him home. And there are huge efforts to that effect. And President Trump was brilliant to carve out the whole model of the day after in Gaza, and that requires so much diplomacy and so much smart diplomacy that is right now on the table. I mean, this is going to be discussed soon. I hope he will present the Board of Peace, and we will see things moving forward. Meanwhile, the nation is still, with our many sons and daughters in Gaza, in the Lebanon border, in Syria. And the whole idea is to move forward. Indeed, we've dramatically affected the Middle East. We are in very, very sensitive days throughout the region. I think our army, our military, the decisions that were taken in order to change the reality are very impressive, and we should keep on with the momentum of bringing change. Now, change in my mind calls for the increase of further partners in the Abraham Accords. At the end, we are all children of Abraham, and Isaac and Ishmael should continue in a path of real dialogue between Jew and Muslim and see a future to the region. And I look at it also in a historical perspective. If you look at the 1973 war, there was no dialogue between Israel and any nation around us. Now, 50 years later, we have dialogue with many nations around us, above board or under, or I would say less open and exposed, but still very impressive dialogue. We understand the risks of the empire of evil from Tehran, and we talk about the future. If you look, for example, during the last 2.5 years, you had very strong contacts with the partners of the Abraham Accords, and this is something very impressive. Here I want to commend the United Arab Emirates, for example, for having an enormous role, both on the humanitarian level in Gaza, as well as on ongoing strong bonds with Israel towards the future of the region. And I think these are examples of how things are dramatically changed.
I think it's an excellent point because we so often get attracted by where all the noise is. And all the noise of the last 2 years has really been in the West because of the protests, because of the statements from prominent people. And when you look at the countries that are in the Abraham Accords, I've been impressed by, while they've been largely quiet, nobody has recalled their ambassador. Nobody has broken out of the Abraham Accords. They have been quiet, steadfast partners. And for me, when I think about leadership, it often gets judged by decisions and outcomes. But in these moments of historic crisis, it should also be measured by presence, by who shows up, who's listening, who is willing to speak when words are hard to find. And in this respect, you have impressed me enormously because you have spent so many hours meeting with hostages and their families and tending the funerals of fallen soldiers. And I wonder what these encounters, as painful as they are, have taught you.
So I would say that the emotional, I would say, weight that I carry on my shoulders is enormous. And that had to do, first and foremost, with the hostages and their families. And I'm proud to have been involved as much as I could in bringing them back home, in meeting well over 1,600 bereaved families in Israel, day in, day out. I just met now a family, a beautiful boy, who was actually in the Nova festival. He was a soldier who went with another friend, and he saved his friend, and just a family from Ofakim, and of course the wounded, and we have so many people in post-trauma, and so many people who are still challenged by their health and the situation, physical or mental. And of course, the issue of the inner tension which boils together. So clearly, it requires a lot of emotional attention. I'm not on the couch of any analyst right now. On the contrary, I'm very proud that God gave me this opportunity to offer solace and comfort and strength to my nation. I think this is an incredible nation, and a nation that has gone through enormous trauma that bears from previous generations. You know how many families, bereaved families, are descendants of people who went through the Holocaust. You could have seen it in the microcosm of some of the hostage families. But you think to yourself as if it repeats itself, like you say in the Haggadah, Bechol Dor Vador, in each generation, and here again. And it's the challenge of the era and the challenge of the generation. But we should not give up hope. And I believe that after the enormous pain of October 7th, it is time to come forward with a vision of dialogue. And that's why I commend President Trump for being so much involved, meticulously involved, in trying to reshape our region.
I'm going to ask you about unity next, but before I do that, how do you think October 7th changed Israel and Israelis?
Definitely changed Israel. I would say the following. On the one hand, it raised deep questions about, can we trust our partner? Can we trust our neighbor? Look, we cannot shy away from the fact that those who were the biggest advocates of peace and coexistence with the people of Gaza were the first to be butchered, raped, abducted, taken hostage, and killed. On the other hand, it also is calling for us to realize that we have no choice but to advocate the future of living together and moving forward together. We have no choice. We are all the children of Abraham, and we should make the effort. And the fact is that you're seeing the geostrategic change in the region. It calls for further movement towards a dialogue. It's not going to be easy.
A dialogue with the Palestinians?
It's a dialogue, I would say, first of all, with the whole Arab world around us, or those who want to talk to us, and of course, with our Palestinian neighbors. It requires a moment to find the opportunity, and I think that the platform which was established by the UN Security Council with 13 in favor and no against, just very recently at the initiation of the American administration, President Trump's vision and the 21-point plan, is exactly the platform that can stir towards bringing over this dialogue.
That's outside of Israel. Now let's talk about inside of Israel. You speak a lot about unity. And I wonder if you could share with us, what do you think unity realistically looks like after October 7th, in the midst of judicial reform, who knows where that is, in the midst of a prime minister who's got corruption charges and wants a pardon, in the midst of questions about, you mentioned Arab law and order, Haredi enlistment in the army. There's so many issues that are polarizing and dividing and drawing lines between Israelis. So what does unity and rebuilding, what can it really look like?
So, first of all, let's be more lucid about it. Since I speak every day to another world leader, every day, on the issues that's important to Israel, so many nations around the globe are challenged by so many divisive issues. Look at the United States of America. It's challenged by major divisive issues. And also, if you look at it, we know, and we should discuss the fate and what's happening to American Jews. We hear the news about the arson and burning of the biggest synagogue out there in Mississippi. And you ask yourself, is this yet another example of the wave of anti-Semitism that we see as we see Mamdani being elected to being the mayor of New York City, the biggest Jewish population outside Israel? It's mind-boggling for me. I'm a graduate of Ramaz High School in New York. I'm very proud of that, and I would never imagine that somebody who hates Israel so badly and expresses anti-Semitic views is being the mayor of New York City. So I'm saying to myself, there are many divisive issues. We are a very vibrant society, very vibrant and aggressive democracy. We have very many issues to tackle and argue about. That's been there from day one, by the way, since way before the establishment of the state. I don't shy away from the major challenges. And when I say unity, I don't speak about unanimity. I speak about unity in the sense that at the end, there are boundaries and we should have a dialogue and we should have an honorable discussion and debates and decisions that are taken democratically, but we should not in any way cross red lines. That doesn't mean unanimity. There would never be unanimity in this country. But the energies are amazing, and we should direct the energies to doing good, because we are a nation that does good, and we should not fall into the trap of hate and divisiveness, which have brought the worst atrocities against our nation centuries ago.
You mentioned American Jewry, the attack in Mississippi, Mamdani. There's also Manchester, England, where there was a stabbing attack on Yom Kippur, obviously Bondi Beach.
Yeah, I met Rabbi Walker from Manchester just recently. Yes, him and his people were really brave. in that Yom Kippur. But here's another example, unfortunately. And Bondi Beach in Australia, which I'm due to visit in the next few weeks, and meet the community and strengthen the community and express our love and connection and bring the message of the entire Jewish people to strengthen the community and have a dialogue with the Australian government.
You preemptively answered my question, which was I was going to say there's so many Jews around the world that feel connected to Israel. They might be afraid to express it right now because they also feel deeply vulnerable. And what's the message that you have for them?
Well, that's shocking when you think about it. Our aim should be that no Jew feels harassed or no Jew feels threatened in any way that he or she cannot express their Judaism and their belief and their faith or whatever they want to express for being Jewish. It's just shocking. And we understand that it will never, I mean, this is the age-old disease of anti-Semitism. And when you look at it, in this era, it's supported by platforms which are terrible because they bring all the anti-Semites together and they bash you in a horseshoe effect from right and left. But that's exactly why we must stand up. That's why we must fight. At the end, if you look at America, America is a nation of the rule of law and constitution, and therefore you can use the legal system and education and explanation and adjudication and of course fight on campus or anywhere else so that you can express fully and freely your religious freedom.
I have to also ask you about the other side of the coin, which we know there was a lot of Jews in New York that voted for Mamdani to be the mayor. We know that there's a lot of Jews that are out there protesting alongside the mob with their "As a Jew" signs. And I wonder if you're worried about the relationship between Israel and global Jewry.
So we know, well, and previously to being president, I was the chairman of the biggest Jewish organization in the world, the Jewish Agency, which acts and operates in around 70 countries.
And I wonder if you remember your very first trip in that capacity was to Boston. And one
I
of the very
remember,
first
and
people,
I remember you.
and one of the first people that you met was me.
And well, nobody can forget you. And I definitely remember vividly. And I think since then, of course, you grew and developed and make a big impact. And I thank you for that, Aviva.
You did pretty well in your career also since then also.
So I would say like that we are, I mean, humanity is about 8 billion human beings. The Jewish people are about between 15 and 20. We're a small nation. That's why we have to stay together. Unfortunately, we know that there are millions of Jews who are unaffiliated. In a way, October 7th, in a counter reaction, enkindled their connection to their Judaism in many, many facets of life. Although there are those who also opted to stay unaffiliated, even get even farther than that. I don't intend to be judgmental. Before you judge people, go and see their life circumstances, listen to them. That's why I say part of those who bash Israel, come on guys, come here. See for yourselves. See our children in the shelters. Hear the sirens. See our sons and daughters fight actually to protect the free world, to protect Europe, to protect the free world means Europe and then after the United States, because that empire of evil from Iran wants to get all of us out, eradicated, Christians, Jews, and modern Muslims. And I would say, let's say moderate Muslims. That's where we're at. So therefore, what I'm saying is, I'm not trying to preach. I'm trying to explain. We as a Jewish people should be together from all facets of Judaism, from all facets of life, secular to ultra-Orthodox. We have no other choice. Our haters and bashers, those who came to butcher us on October 7th, or those who attack us on campuses and universities and synagogues, they don't really care from which side of the spectrum of Judaism we are.
We have to wrap up shortly, but before we do, when you think about Israel 5 or 10 years from now, what do you envision and what do you hope for?
I believe in Israel. I'm very optimistic about my nation. It has incredible zestfulness for life. Take even the economy as an example. We're one of the strongest economies on earth despite this war. We're strong in the way we perform. We have many needs. We don't argue about that, but we are impressively strong. We show growth. huge investments, innovativeness, a strong currency, zero unemployment. I mean, this is impressive. And the reason is we have a zestfulness for life, and we're impressive in this sense. We are very far reaching free speech. People here can say whatever they want, and there are debates, and very strong debates, sometimes very painful. Part of my problem is that people come and complain to me, why don't you comment on this and why don't you comment on that? Because at the end, people express their views. This is part of democracy, and it's also part of the strength of the nation. I don't always like what I see, definitely don't like some of the steps. I express my opinion and my view when it necessitates it. And I definitely intend to support and lead the public and the nation into a process of elections this year, which I hope will be open, fair, and democratic as much as possible without deteriorating into moments of inner tension or, God forbid, anything worse than that. But the world should understand we are a democracy and we are the only one in this region. And things will be said that may not sound pleasant to people, but that's part of the people's right to express themselves. At the end, in the ballot box, they will make the decisions. And I believe in the future and eternity of Israel, and I believe that we are in a great process of affecting and contributing both to the region and to the world in so many fields. We should be proud of Israel. That's what I say to everybody.
I agree with you. I'm incredibly proud of Israel. You spoke about how history has put innumerable challenges at this period of time for you in your presidency. And I just want to say I'm thankful that history has made you the president in this time. There have been so many instances where we were in grief and trauma and anger and fear, and you've been a calming, reassuring, morally sound figure through it all. And I want to thank you on behalf of the Jewish people.
Thank you, Aviva. I'm very grateful to you. And let's hope that 2026 will bring with it new spirit of good wishes and blessings.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank
Toda
you.
rabba.